welcome back. Thank you for joining me once again. We are continuing our Getting Through the Eye of the Needle series, but as I promised you last video, I'm going to shift sort of the tone a little bit here. And the title that I'm working with today is Men of God, Men of Conscience. And at some point where there is disaster or where there is calamity in the land, the rebuilding of a nation must commence. There must be someone who can stand up and start to rebuild. And so today I want to talk about Nehemiah. Nehemiah chapter 1. We're going to keep this video relatively short. I know that some of my past videos in the last series here have been close to 25 minutes, half an hour. So I'm just going to keep this one short and maybe divide it up into a couple of sections. But do you remember a movie that was produced some time ago now, and it was called Schindler's List? You know, I like the movie because it had some historical grit to it, that it was telling the story of an entrepreneurial person in Nazi Germany during the World War II, that he was convicted inside, and it became more than just the money. He started rescuing Jewish people from outside Nazi Germany, and he created a list, and hence the title, known as Schindler's List. I use that as an example because I truly believe that you can't look at people that have built business, that have built empires of wealth. You can't look at people of means always with that critical eye that somehow in your spiritual dialogue that they're somehow not matching up. They're not quite as spiritual as you are, because they love money. Actually, I think many of them, they have a good, healthy drive to achieve things. And it takes money to make the world go round. And so they've learned to master using money as a tool, which is really where we should all be, right? As far as how we view money. So, in Nehemiah, this is a really interesting book of the Old Testament. It talks, and it's in the time of just after the occupation, the Babylonian occupation. The king was Xerxes, I think. And so Nehemiah is a man of the court of the king. And he shows himself to be a man of conviction, deep passion and conviction. Now, he is a man of means in consideration to position within the king's court. So, and I want you to read this book for yourself because it seems to me, I just read it over freshly, and it sounds like it's like a journal where Nehemiah mentions himself in the first person, and I did this, and I did that, and we did this. So it sounds like a journal from a man who was pricked in his conscience. And he had the means and he had the favor of the king, and he set about the monumental task of rebuilding the dignity and the walls of Jerusalem. So he had a passion for his nation. He well, I'm going to read in chapter 1. There's a couple of verses that I think would really illustrate what I'm trying to say. So Nehemiah, in the first, in the month of Kislev in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Harani, one of my brothers, came from Judah and with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. A conversation in the court. They said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and the gates have been burned with fire. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Then I said, Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's family, have committed against you. We have acted very wickedly towards you. We have not obeyed the commands, decrees, the laws you gave your servant Moses. So the application here is, you see a man who is of the court, of high status, and he sits down, and after hearing the news, the indignity of his people, you have to know that the promises given to the Jewish or the Israelite nation are very much bound to earth, bound to our earthly holdings, the promised land, right? Milk and honey. And it's, all of these things are very based in the here and now, right? The promises of God. So he is mourning for the destruction of Jerusalem, that the walls, they have a message of strength and dignity, right? And I'm not saying that these are perfect people. I'm saying that there is enough national pride in this man that it caused him to weep. And so what happens in the following verses is he starts to repent, not only on behalf of his nation, but he repents on behalf of himself and his family. So before he goes out and moves into doing something about the indignity of his nation, he first of all looks up and he says, I need to get my family right with you, God. We need to bring ourselves back into alignment with your promises and with your commandments, which I think is a pretty good thing to do even now, right? If you commit problems or sin in your life, and you're asking God for favor, it's probably good that you get things right with him in your conscience as well as in your daily walk with him. So he repents here in verse 7. We have acted very wickedly towards you. We have not obeyed your commandments. So it's an open confession, right? He's laying it out on the line. And I believe right now in our days and times in the church, even in the nation, we are in not just people would call it a season of exposure, bringing to light, right? Coming to light. But I think we are in a season of exposing truth. And truth does not need a defense. And you see a lot of chafing going on because truth is challenging our corruption. And we can say, bring to light, Lord, the corruption, or bring forward, Lord, your truth so that it may be seen by all. So in John chapter 3, it talks about that men hid from the light because they saw that their deeds were evil. So why does this matter to what I'm reading? You have a man here who basically is moved in his heart and spirit for the dignity of his nation, and he repents of his own sin, the sin of his nation, and the sin of his own family before he steps out. So in verse 8 he says, remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. So if you do this, I will, which is, I draw back to the Abrahamic covenant. It's basically, if you will, I will, right? In the book of James, it talks about if you draw close to God, he will draw close to you, right? So verse 10, they are your servants and your people. This is Nehemiah praying, whom you redeemed by your great strength and your mighty hand. Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. I was cupbearer to the king. So he is about to make a request of the king. And he cannot do it without the favor and the clear conscience of God on his heart and in his mind. He cannot do it without God going before him. So there's a lot of things I could talk about here, but I want to talk about a man of God, a man of conscience. So it's okay that we can preach and teach all the scriptural applications and truths and walk with God, and we can urge people to rise to a higher standard. But here is a man who actually said, I am burdened with great purpose, but I need to prepare myself before the Lord. So I say to you today that getting through the eye of the needle is to walk not only as a man of God, but as a man of conscience. But the other side, which I always enhance this topic, is man of God, make sure that you are a man of conscience. Man of business, make sure that you are a man of conscience, because this is how we are going to begin to rescue our nation. All right, take care. Have a great day.